Tonight on Real to Real, we discuss teaching non-Catholic students in Catholic schools.
We'll meet a priest who has opened his home to troubled teens.
Visit a camp for families only.
See the sidewalk artist at work.
Dr. Bill Larkin has some thoughts on the Lady of Częstochowa.
And Father Walt Nolan answers your questions in our Do You Know segment.
Hello, I'm Monsignor Charles Minor.
And I'm Sean Hughes Camp. Welcome to this edition of Real to Real. In recent years, enrollment in private education has been on the rise. Parochial education has experienced this trend, producing more heterogeneous student populations than ever. In fact, in 1982, nationally, over 11% of all students enrolled in parochial schools were non-Catholics. How does the child whose religious orientation differs from his classmates grow in a parochial setting? And how does the teacher, who must meet the needs of the Catholic student, remain sensitive to the needs of the Baptist or Lutheran student in his class? Joining us tonight on Crosstalk are Sister Sheila Murray, principal of our Mother of Sorrows school, with a 67% student population of non-Catholics, and Mrs. Carolyn Levy, who is the mother of a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old currently attending our Mother of Sorrows. And Mrs. Levy, I'd like to ask you, why would you send your child to a Catholic school?
Well, the first reason is because I want the best education possible for my children that I can afford. And second of all is that the classes aren't as large as they are in other schools. You know, the enrollment is much better. The children get more individual attention, in other words, okay?
Sister Sheila, how has this school been different from other schools in which you've taught?
I think the main difference is in stress. The stress on the Word of God is very important, and in every grade, when that comes into the curriculum or into the guides, the teachers stress the Word because that's a unifying force. And Jesus is important in our school. So Jesus' life and Jesus' words are important. The stress on that. The other thing that's different, I think, is our celebration of liturgy. Each class celebrates a liturgy once a week. And the third difference would be outreach. Our children are involved in outreach to the poor, to those who need. So it's more of an experiential difference. The faith that's being communicated is not always communicated in the classroom and from the teacher's head and heart to the child's head and heart, but through experiences, parish experiences, liturgical experiences, and prayerful experiences around the Word.
Mrs. Levy, as a pastor, one of my concerns would be if you came to me and have your children come to our school to say, we will have the same curriculum as all the other children, but will that cause tensions for your children who are not Catholic to experience Catholic education versus what they're learning experience at home in your faith?
Well, I would have to say no to that question for the simple fact that I have attended a Catholic Mass, and the teachings are basically the same, except that they're executed differently. And there is no conflict with my children.
Do
so
they feel
far.
any exclusion at all when, say, for instance, we have sacraments preparation for our children in Catholic school?
Oh, no. No, because, see, they know that one Sunday a month that they have it themselves at our own church, and they do not feel excluded from it. Mm-hmm.
Sister, how is sacramental preparation handled in a mixed group?
Well, for the 5th grade, the sacrament curriculum is followed as close to the guidelines as possible. But when we have children who are preparing, the small children preparing for this, to receive the sacrament, we group the children. We pull all the Catholics together, some 2nd graders, 3rd graders, 4th graders, and then Sister Peggy takes them and gives them a special focus, special lessons on preparation for the big event. While she's doing that, I take her class and maybe some Bible stories or follow her religion program, so that the children are prepared for Eucharist or for reconciliation, and then they don't get a chance to participate in it. The older children, we teach them the curriculum. We teach them about confirmation when we're preparing the children. We focus in on those students maybe once a week for an extra special preparation. But they're participating with us in confirmation. Confirmation's a lot like their experience of baptism in their own church. So there isn't that much of a difference, and they feel very much involved in it, especially the outreach part. So we do different things. You have to be creative and get your teachers involved in maybe doing something different to meet the needs of the students who are Catholic and the students who are non-Catholic.
So you don't see any need for the Catholic families to be defensive. What about the Catholic boy and girl? Are the conservative people right in saying, well, you're watering down your
No, they're
curriculum?
not. As a matter of fact, so many people present that question, and they ask it, even sisters in my own community, wondering why I'm teaching non-Catholic students. It's not watered down. If in anything, I think it's religious education at its fullest, because we're experiencing it, plus the broadness of learning other people's faith experience. The bottom line is where our faith experience is in Jesus and how he's affecting our life and how we're living together and building community. So we're not watering down. There might be less stress on doctrinal passing of the truth that way in the classroom, because one classroom experience is in church and it is a liturgical experience. So it's not the traditional religion class in school.
How do you celebrate with all the different traditions that each child brings with them? How do you celebrate each holy season or holiday?
Well, every Catholic holiday we celebrate in our school. Everybody celebrates together. Once a month we have a celebration for the whole school, whatever it is in the liturgical calendar. At Christmas time we celebrated Kwanzaa, which included everyone in the school and parish. Let's say for the Seder meal, we have a Jewish teacher who will help us to celebrate the Seder meal. So we celebrate everything possible, and we celebrate it with children input, children participation, and the celebration kind of equalizes out the experience of God in our parish and our life. So it's truly a celebration.
How about the science, math, humanities all keep pace with all the other schools?
Yes, we do. Very much so. Very much so.
Mrs. Levy, do you ever fear that your child's beliefs would be encroached upon by the teachings of the Catholics in the school?
No, I don't think so.
How do you reinforce your own beliefs?
Well, we have Bible readings at home, and so far the children said they're the same thing. The only difference were the way that you executed your, the way you handle your services. That's all. But other than that, there was no difference at all. None.
If you were to move to another parish area, how would you go about selecting another school for your child?
Well, first of all, I would have to attend a mass to see how the priest handles the congregation and what exactly he's teaching the congregation. That will not confuse my children, by the way. Mm-hmm.
I guess a school like this must experience a great amount of ecumenism.
Mm-hmm.
How does that feel to teach in a school like that?
I think it's exciting. I think it's the spirit breathing in the church and opening up the doors to sharing faith in a broader perspective of it, and an appreciation and sense of dignity, and also get more in touch with your own faith experience. What's important? Children see that Eucharist is important in our parish. It energizes. It's our central thing. We start the day with it. So we become renewed ourselves, plus we become aware and accepting of other people's differences. And I think that spills over to life experience. If we're accepting our differences here, maybe we can accept differences in the playground or wherever their life touches each other.
Do you think that the Catholic student is actually learning perhaps more in a mixed student body than in the 100% Catholic student body?
I think they can learn more, and I think they can be broadened by the experience, and I think they can also be proud of their own religious experience as they go through with others that are different.
Is this going to be a trend for the future?
I think so. I think it's coming. People are more and more worried about their statistics that non-Catholics are interested in our schools.
Well, thank you very much, Sister Sheila, and thank you, Mrs. Levy, for being with us tonight. We hope you've enjoyed our discussion on Crosstalk and that you'll stay tuned for more of Real to Real.
Coming up, Dr. Bill Larkin and Father Walt Nolan join us, and we visit the sidewalk artist. Stay tuned. Coming up in Expressions, we will hear from psychotherapist Bill Larkin, who has some thoughts on Our Lady of Sense Jehovah and healing pain in our lives. Then we'll also hear from Father Walt Nolan, who will answer some of your questions on our Do You Know series. But first, let's look in on artist Randy Hofman and see how he spends his time. It seems that the world is his canvas, but the Word is his message. We caught him in a creative mood at Ocean City, Maryland.
Do you pray to the saints? Should you pray to the saints? Hi, I'm Father Walt Nolan. We received a letter this week from Mrs. Mellon, who asks just that question. Father, she said, what is the significance of praying to the saints in our church? Mrs. Mellon, when we talk about praying to the saints, we really like to go all the way back to the Scriptures. In the Old Testament, we find God calling the people to be holy as God himself is holy. And then in the Gospels, Jesus is called the Holy One of God. And it's only through Jesus that we can reach the holiness of God the Father. However, we also realize that Jesus came himself to call the people of the world into the kingdom of the Father, to sanctify the people of the world. In the early church, they saw the specialness of men and women who would give their life, the martyrs, to witness to that special call as a people of God. And now we ourselves live as a community of saints. We live sharing the gifts that each and every one of us has to build up the community of saints, to be, in the words, the people of God. In the past, they saw a real distinction between the veneration of saints and the adoration of God as Father. 1 Timothy talks in terms of Jesus as being the only mediator of the love of God the Father to us as his people, and we as the people of God sharing our love back to the Father. The church has always urged us to pray to the saints. In fact, the Council of Trent has called us to call on the saints to be our aid and to have recourse to their powers for help, but always sharing the blessings of God through Christ, who alone is the mediator of God's love and God's grace. I like to look at it this way, Mrs. Mellon, that what we really do in praying to the saints is to share the message from God to ourselves, just like the angels came to share that message. And the message we are sharing is really the power of God in the unity and the oneness of the love of God and love of neighbor. So, praying to the saints is not only part of our tradition, I think it fits well into the Scripture and into the sharing of God's love with each other. Thanks for your question, Mrs. Mellon. And if you have a question, please write in to Father Walt Nolan, care of Do You Know, room 907, 222 North 17th Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, 19103.
This is the icon of Our Lady of Częstochowa. During his second pilgrimage to Poland, Pope John Paul II laid the sash of his robes blood-stained from the attempt on his life at the foot of the altar of Our Lady of Częstochowa in thanksgiving for saving his life. Called the Black Madonna because of the buildup of incense burned in her honor over hundreds and hundreds of years, the icon beckons all those who encounter the countenance of the Madonna to realize they are poor. Even the materially wealthy come, and they too, if they hear her message, realize they are poor. The icon has become a symbol of Polish nationalism and the Catholic faith which cannot be separated from it. In 1966, the Polish people celebrated the millennium, 1,000 years of that nation's being Catholic, as a gift to the church and to the whole world. With the knowledge that they were poor to create any lasting change, the Polish people laid their lives, themselves as a victim people, on the altar of the icon of Our Lady of Częstochowa, offering themselves as a victim people for the salvation and conversion of the world. As a Christian psychotherapist, I've come to know the lady in the icon. She tells me this: as trained professionals, we can rearrange the mental furniture, change ideas, change minds, alter perceptions and attitudes, perhaps, maybe for a while. But lasting change comes only from a change in the heart. And that is why the Madonna points to the Son, to the Christ who alone can change human hearts. Our Lady of Częstochowa, pray for us in this time.
And when I moved in with Dennis, Dennis always talked to me, and I learned a lot just from him.
We really feel like camp can really provide a lived example of Christianity. We don't just try to teach archery here and how to swim. We really try to teach kindness.
A few years ago, a California priest, Father Dennis Gilbert, got a call from the police asking him to help a teen that was in trouble. Father Gilbert didn't know it at the time, but this was a new beginning for him, a new beginning for that teen and the many others who have gotten an opportunity to get their lives together at the Dennis Gilbert home, which we'll visit next. Then we're going to take a trip to the Cascade Mountains to a summer camp that's a little unusual because the kids are required to bring their parents along for the fun.
In an economic climate that demands financial cutbacks, it's not only the elderly and the unemployed that must find ways to live with inadequate social services. Although child protective agencies do exist, there are still many teenagers in family situations that hinder their social and educational development.
Well, I was just having problems at home with my dad, and I was looking for someplace else to move, get my life back together. And my mom knew Dennis, and she called him up and talked to him and made all the plans for me to move in with him. And that's how I got here.
It used to be that foster care was a normal avenue for a lot of kids, but even that is not an option in most cases anymore unless there's been physical or sexual abuse that can be proven in court.
In a typical family home in suburban San Luis Obispo, California, Father Dennis Gilbert is trying to create a typical family lifestyle. He is a foster parent to several teenage boys who had nowhere left to go.
Before I moved with Dennis and this family environment, I really hadn't thought about, anything about life or looking ahead to anything. And when I moved in with Dennis, Dennis always talked to me, and I learned a lot just from him. And I started to look forward to school and getting through it and getting an education, getting a job, getting a car and paying things off, and possibly moving out in the future. you know, just things like that that I never looked at before.
What young people need, whether they're in their own home or for some reason are not, is a sense of stability and normalcy, where the skills for adult living are, you know, picked up over a period of time, and usually that's best done by practice.
What began 3 years ago as an effort to help two teenagers in trouble has blossomed into a full-fledged family, which has helped over 30 young men. Having set aside his desire to raise a family when he joined the priesthood, Father Dennis is as surprised as anyone to find himself responsible for a house full of teenagers.
I think what I'm experiencing here is probably what most parents experience with teenagers. You know, it's that day-to-day battle. And it's not always a battle, but you know, the built-in frustrations and responsibilities.
For Father Dennis Gilbert, being a father has taken on a whole new meaning.
Many people have asked why the church is in the recreation business. Why don't we just let the King County or, you know, the state take care of all? Well, we really feel like camp can really provide a lived example of Christianity. We don't just try to teach archery here and how to swim. We really try to teach kindness.
Traditionally, it's been the family that prays together stays together. But at Camp Don Bosco in the Cascade Mountains of western Washington, the emphasis is on the family that prays and plays together. Peg and Tom Whitaker have been involved with family camping for years and now act as coordinators for the family weekends.
Family camping is a pleasant contrast to the everyday life of most of our families. Our society is very high stress now, and the families are separated most of the daytime. So when we bring them out here to camp, we concentrate on time together in a relaxed atmosphere, and that's really our primary goal.
The Archdiocese of Seattle sponsors Camp Don Bosco through their CYO program. Steve McAuliffe is the CYO director for the Archdiocese and administrative coordinator for the camp.
We think that this kind of a relaxed setting provides a good atmosphere in which they can share their Christian family values with one another. So we attempt to do things that in an informal way build community and try to foster that kind of relaxed sharing.
What's this guy's name?
When people leave here, they really have a sense of family, more than just their own family. They have a sense of family with the 20 or 30 other families who are here. And they're families that would be from all over the Archdiocese. And they get a feeling that church is not just the bureaucracy or an organization, that here are other families who we shared a weekend with, and this is what church is.
In the midst of all the things we did and talked about tonight, there was one central theme, that of devotion to Our Lady of Czestochowa. Today, our Holy Father, Pope John Paul II, and all of our bishops asked us to consecrate ourselves in a very special way to our Blessed Mother. It's happy for us, then, that we have this occasion to say that consecration is not just simply picking one idea and making it separate, but all things become consecrated to our Blessed Mother.
Next week, we meet the troubadour of the King,
an artist who works in stained glass,
a critic who reviews church services,
we'll hear from our own critic, Mike Gallagher,
and Dr. Bill Larkin.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Good night, and God bless you.
We look forward to seeing you next week. Good night.